Hey friends, how are you doing today? I hope you're feeling blessed and staying in God's presence, and if not, I hope you feel uplifted after today's video. If you're new here, welcome to His Princess Christian community, where we read a chapter of the Bible every day and then discuss it afterwards and in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and it opens the door for more people to join our community. And while you're at it, check out the description box. We got a lot of great stuff in there. So today we're reading Genesis chapter 27, but before we get started, I wanted to say a prayer if you wouldn't mind bowing your heads with me. Dear God, thank you for bringing us together here on His Princess Christian community. Thank you for opening the door for people to join our community, for connecting us and strengthening our bond. Thank you for opening our eyes, our ears, our hearts, and our minds to your word. Thank you for your wisdom, understanding, and clarity as we seek to interpret your word. And thank you for the courage to apply it to our daily lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, Genesis chapter 27. One day, when Isaac was old and turning blind, he called for Esau, his older son, and said, "My son." "Yes, father," Esau replied. "I am an old man now," Isaac said, "and I don't know when I may die. Take your bow and quiver full of arrows and go out into the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare my favorite dish and bring it here for me to eat. Then I will pronounce the blessing that belongs to you, my firstborn son, before I die." But Rebekah overheard what Isaac had said to his son Esau. So when Esau left to hunt for the wild game, she said to her son Jacob, "Listen, I overheard your father saying to Esau, 'Bring me some wild game and prepare me a delicious meal. Then I will bless you in the Lord's presence before I die.' Now, my son, listen to me. Do exactly as I tell you. Go out to the flocks and bring me 2 fine young goats. I'll use them to prepare your father's favorite dish. Then take the food to your father so he can eat it and bless you before he dies." "But look," Jacob replied to Rebekah, "my brother Esau is a hairy man and my skin is smooth. What if my father touches me? He'll see that I'm trying to trick him, and then he'll curse me instead of blessing me." But his mother replied, "Then let the curse fall on me, my son. Just do what I tell you. Go out and get the goats for me." So Jacob went out and got the young goats for his mother. Rebekah took them and prepared a delicious meal, just the way Isaac liked it. Then she took Esau's favorite clothes, which were in the house, and gave them to her younger son Jacob. She covered his arms and the smooth part of his neck with the skin of the young goats. Then she gave Jacob the delicious meal, including freshly baked bread. So Jacob took the food to his father. "My father," he said. "Yes, my son," Isaac answered. "Who are you, Esau or Jacob?" Jacob replied, "It is Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you told me. Here is the wild game. Now sit up and eat it so you can give me your blessing." Isaac asked, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God put it in my path," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer so I can touch you and make sure you are really Esau." So Jacob went closer to his father, and Isaac touched him. The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. Isaac said, but he did not recognize Jacob because Jacob's hands felt hairy, just like Esau's. So Isaac prepared to bless Jacob. "But are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "Yes, I am," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said, "Now, my son, bring me the wild game. Let me eat it, and then I will give you my blessing." So Jacob took the food to his father, and Isaac ate it. He also drank the wine that Jacob served him. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come a little closer and kiss me, my son." So Jacob went over and kissed him. And when Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he was finally convinced, and he blessed his son. He said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the outdoors, which the Lord has blessed. From the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, may God always give you abundant harvests of grain and bountiful new wine. May many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. All who curse you will be cursed. All who bless you will be blessed." As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and almost before Jacob had left his father, Esau returned from his hunt. Esau prepared a delicious meal and brought it to his father. Then he said, "Sit up, my father, and eat my wild game so you can give me your blessing." But Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" Esau replied, "It's your son, your firstborn son, Esau." Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably and said, "Then who just served me wild game?" I have already eaten it, and I blessed him just before you came, and yes, that blessing must stand." When Esau heard his father's words, he let out a loud, bitter cry. "Oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too," he begged. But Isaac said, "Your brother was here, and he tricked me. He has taken away your blessing." Esau exclaimed, "No wonder his name is Jacob, for now he has cheated me twice. First he took my rights as the firstborn, and now he has stolen my blessing. Oh, haven't you saved even one blessing for me?" Isaac said to Esau, "I have made Jacob your master and have declared that all his brothers will be his servants. I have guaranteed him an abundance of grain and wine. What is left for me to give you, my son?" Esau pleaded, "But do you have only one blessing? Oh, my father, bless me too." Then Esau broke down and wept. Finally his father Isaac said to him, "You will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of the heaven above. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck." From that time on, Esau hated Jacob because their father had given Jacob the blessing. And Esau began to scheme, "I will soon be mourning my father's death. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." But Rebekah heard about Esau's plans. So she sent for Jacob and told him, "Listen, Esau is consoling himself by plotting to kill you. So listen carefully, my son. Get ready and flee to my brother Laban's in Haran. Stay there with him until your brother cools off. When he calms down and forgets what you have done to him, I will send for you to come back. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Then Rebekah said to Isaac, "I'm sick and tired of these local Hittite women. I would rather die than see Jacob marry one of them." Amen. So what did you think of Genesis chapter 27? I'm interested to hear about it in the comments below. Let me know what your insights or interpretations were on the chapter, or maybe comment your favorite verse, or just say hi and let us know that you're part of the community. And if you've been blessed lately, let us know so that we can rejoice with you. And if you need prayer, make sure you're putting that in the comments too so we can pray together as a community. Okay, so this chapter is entitled Jacob Steals Esau's Blessing. And so I think it's so funny how this chapter opens up. It says, one day when Isaac was old and turning blind, he called to his oldest son Esau and he said, I don't know when I may die. You know, I'm an old man now. So take your bow, go into the country, get some wild game for me, prepare my favorite dish, and I want to pronounce a blessing that belongs to you, my firstborn son, before I die. So here's Jacob, here's Isaac getting old, thinking he's ready to die, and he's like, go get my favorite food, and I'm going to bless you before I die, because who knows, it may be tomorrow. Which I think is funny because then he doesn't die for a long, long time after this. But it just kind of goes to show you that in our old age, we just kind of are waiting for the end and preparing for the end. So when Rebekah heard this, she immediately said to Isaac, this is what, this is what she immediately said to Jacob. I always get them mixed up. She immediately said to Jacob, Isaac said he was going to bless Esau, so do what I tell you to do. And I'm wondering if this isn't because back in chapter 25, when both of her sons were in the womb, she asked God, why is this happening? And the Lord responded to her. This is in verse 23. The sons in your womb will become two nations from the very beginning. One nation will be stronger than the other. The older will serve your younger son. So the Lord told her already what was going to happen. So I wonder if that might be one of the reasons why, also, in verse 27, it says that Jacob had a quiet temperament and preferred to stay at home, while Esau was always outdoors hunting. So Jacob stayed closer to his mother, and God told her that her younger son was going to be the head. And so it's important to recognize that. So when it says that, so it shows that Rebekah always had that favor for Jacob. And I think that that's just important to recognize, that maybe that was partially because God put that on her heart. So we see this manipulation, but sometimes some things that look like manipulation can be an orchestration by God. And a lot of people look at it a little bit differently because they don't want to see God as a manipulator of things. But I like the word orchestrate a little bit better. And, they say God's plan will come about whether we do anything or not. But a lot of the times his plan comes about because of some of the bad things that happen in this world. And, this is manipulation. This is deception. This is wrong. And God is not a deceiver. So in no way am I condoning or saying that God condones deception. I feel like God would have made it happen the right way either way, but I feel like sometimes we try to take what God puts on our hearts and manipulate the situation and the circumstance in our favor, and I feel like God already knows what we're going to do. So, it just so happens. So she tells Jacob to, do all these things, to convince Isaac that he's Esau. So, she puts his clothes on, she puts fur on his hands so he's hairy. And what's so interesting to me when you read this is that it looks like that Isaac wants to be deceived. Like in his heart of hearts, he knows which son is which. He keeps saying it over and over again. And if he really wanted to be convinced, he would have called for both sons at the same time. And, if he was really questioning it. I wrote off to the side that Jacob was willing to be manipulated. So it says, when Jacob took the food to his father says, "Who are you, Esau or Jacob?" Jacob replied, "It is Esau, your firstborn son." And this is the part that I really don't like either, is when Isaac asked, "How did you find the game so quickly?" And he said, "The Lord your God put it in my path." So in a sense, it's true because Rebecca gave him the food to eat. So in a sense that, God put it in her path. But this part always it tears at me a little bit, because a lot of people put things on God that may or may not belong to God. And you've got to wonder, say somebody gives you something and you say, well, God provided it, but was it really God that provided it? So it's something that I always have a dilemma with. You say, well, you made it possible for this to happen, but was it really you? Was it God? Was it really God that put that in your path? So in this situation, was this really the Lord, or was he lying in this sense? So, that's something that always just, a question in my mind. So then it says, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. So he's like, come closer. Isaac's like, come closer. And he says, the voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's. But are you really my son Esau? And Jacob says, yes, I am. So he's just constantly lying. Jacob is forever trying to be somebody who he is not throughout Genesis. And I wrote off to the side, why didn't he trust his instincts that something was not right? Why didn't he pray about it? Why didn't he talk to God about it? Why didn't he call both sons in together? Why did he have to have Esau separated to give him the blessing? He should have been able to give him the blessing in front of the entire family. So this is just, how I say that he was willing to be manipulated. And sometimes you have to wonder, where was God in all of this? And, was this a part of God's plan? Did God just know this was going to happen? And, was that what he was predicting when he spoke to Rebecca originally? Was he just already knew what was going to happen? He already knew the blessing that Jacob was going to do and the deception that Jacob was going to make. So he just went ahead and was basically just saying what was going to happen, or was this really part of his plan? So that's just a very big question on my mind. Like, where is God in the manipulation and the deception of people? Like, where is God's hand in that? I know God can always work things out to his plan. So you have to wonder, how would he have worked it out if Jacob never deceived his father? How would he have worked it out in that case? So that's just the big question on my mind, and it's such a question on my mind because there has been so much deception and manipulation in my life, and I'm constantly asking God, like, where is your hand in this? Like, are you okay with these people manipulating and deceiving me? Like, are you you orchestrating this? Is this part of your plan? And how does their manipulation and their deception serve you? And in this case, God blesses Jacob despite his deception and manipulation, and despite his somewhat wicked ways. So you just really have to question, like, where is God's hand in this, and how is God's sovereignty and justice standing in such manipulation and deception? So then it says, so then he blesses him. So when Jacob went over to kiss him, Isaac caught the smell of the clothes, and that finally convinced him. And he said, so even though he didn't sound like Jacob, he let his other senses, which was the way he felt, the way he smelt, convince him. So then he gave him this blessing, and I just love this blessing. And I wrote off to the side, a blessing only matters if God honors it. So that's the one thing that I do know, that you can bless somebody, but that doesn't mean that God will honor your blessing. But in this case, as God said to Rebekah, that was what he chose. He chose to honor this blessing. And it says, from the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, may God always give you abundant harvests of grain and bountiful wine. May many nations become your servant, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. All who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed. And I just love that. I love that blessing of all who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed. So as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, Esau returned, and he is just so upset. But what's funny is he is upset even though he had already given up his birthright. He gave up his birthright a few chapters ago. So it says that he says, who are you? Isaac said, who are you? And he says, your son, your firstborn son, Esau. And it says, Isaac began to tremble uncontrollably and said, then who just served me wild game? And I wrote aside, you can't go against God's plan. So he's like trembling uncontrollably, like, what did I just do? But it was God's plan to begin with. At the beginning, God said, He told them what was going. He said what was going to happen, and that's why it's a very big. There's a tug on my heart that says that sometimes, just because God tells you what's going to happen, that doesn't mean that is necessarily His plan. Like, maybe He's just telling you this is what is going to happen. These are the choices, because people have free will. So this is the choices these people are going to make, and sometimes God works His plan around the choices that He knows that we are already going to make. And I think that that's hard for some people to understand when it comes to God's sovereignty, is that God already knows the beginning and the end. So He already knows what we're going to choose. So sometimes I feel like some of the things that He says, like, this isn't a promise. Like what He says to Rebekah in chapter 25 is not a promise. He says, your sons will become two nations. He's not promising that. It's not the same as when He says that, like, I will be with you always and I will bless you. It's not the same as that. He's just telling them what was going to happen. So then it says that, oh, my father, what about me? Bless me too. So Esau's like begging for a blessing. He's like, don't you have any blessing left for me? And he was saying, I have guaranteed him an abundance of grain and wine. What is left for me to give you, my son? And I think it's so sad that he felt that way, that he didn't have anything left to give. The blessings of God are abundant and never ending. Like there's an overflow of blessings and abundance from God. So when people have nothing left for you, God has everything that you need. And I think it's just important to remember who you go to for blessings. Like you don't need to go to people for blessings. You need to go to God, and God will bless you. So then it says that Esau pleaded, but do you have only one blessing? Bless me too. So he ended up blessing him, and he says, you will live far away from the riches of the earth, away from the dews of heaven. You will live by your sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck. And I just think this is just so interesting. It's like his blessing is like, yeah, you're going to have a hard life. You're going to be a servant. But if you ever decide to break free, but when you do decide to break free, you can just shake his yoke from your neck. Like, so it's your choice to be his servant or not. And so I wrote aside, your life may not be easy, but it will be blessed. And I also wrote off to the side, don't justify your sin with the pursuit of God's will or the fulfillment of his promise. So we should not try to manipulate circumstances to try to work around to get to his promise or to his will. God's will never include manipulation or deception. His plan doesn't include manipulation or purpose. Sometimes he just tells us what's going to happen. And I said, there's no limit to the blessings of God. No one can take away a blessing from God either. No one can stop God's blessings. And I wrote, the sovereign will of God is done in spite of us. So regardless of what we do, God's will and his sovereignty and his plan will always come through. He already knows what's going to happen, and he knows what his plan is. And sometimes his plan is a lot bigger than we try to realize it to be. His plan is for righteousness and the overall justice of good, the winning of good versus evil. And he's working that plan out. His plan is for us to spend eternity with him and for us to recognize our need for him. And I think that we try to minimize God's plan into our everyday life, where he gave us free will over our everyday life. And while he can bless us in our everyday life, and we can seek him and seek his guidance to how to work out our best steps in our everyday life, that he doesn't plan out. I'm not even going to say that because I don't really know. So I'm not going to say that part. But I feel like he already knows what we're going to choose. And so I think that it's important for us to recognize that he already knows that what our choices are going to be. So sometimes he can just tell us what we're going to choose when we ask him. So then it says, from that time on, Esau hated Jacob, and he said that he was going to kill Jacob. So Rebekah sent him away. And I also wrote off to the side, though man will manipulate and scheme, God's will still accomplishes his purpose. So regardless of our manipulations and our schemes, God will always, always prevail. His purpose and his plan will always win. His sovereignty is above all. And I wrote also, Jacob was not worthy, but God chose him anyway. So God chose his bloodline. He chose Jacob from the beginning, and he chose Isaac over Ishmael. He chose Jacob over Esau. His plan, and we'll come to find out in later chapters, he chose Leah over Rebekah, all to birth the line of Jesus. So, regardless of some of the worst things that you have done and the worst things in your life, like, God can still use you, and he can still use you for the good of other people, even if it doesn't serve your own life. So that is my interpretation of Genesis chapter 27. I'm interested to hear what you have to say about it. Leave it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you stay blessed, stay in God's presence, and have a great rest of your day. I love you.